It's a Dodge video! Major breaking NASCAR news, and it's not good, unfortunately, because a major OEM has said no to NASCAR, and it has been a rough 7 days for NASCAR. There's no doubt about it. We're going to be talking about it all in this video. Not only is there a major rift developing between car owners and the series over TV rights money, and if you're an open wheel fan, you know that that is not a very good sign. But now it also sounds like a major manufacturer has said no to joining the NASCAR Cup Series in the coming years. And it looked like this manufacturer was a slam dunk. So in this video, we will discuss Dodge and why they are not coming to NASCAR, and the current fight over the TV money. Who has the rights to the TV rights for NASCAR? And some of the numbers might surprise you about how little value current NASCAR teams are getting from the TV deal. Plus, I'll rant a little bit about the NASCAR playoff system for old time's sake, because quite frankly, I found yesterday's Roval race to be absolutely ridiculous. But first, our good pal Adam Stern dropped this Stern bomb. I mean, this is like a Stern nuke. This isn't even a Stern bomb at this point. This thing's coming in and it's just blown up everywhere. Huge Stern bomb. And that is that Dodge's talks with NASCAR about re-entering the series as a fourth OEM have stalled. Now, the link to Stern's article will be in the description down below, and I encourage you to click on it because Adam has been so good to this channel. But a couple of the key quotes, Adam even put it in his tweet. Dodge says that it is focused on NHRA and is not planning on expanding their efforts into other forms of racing at this time. And the other thing that's very interesting from the article is that Dodge, at least according to Adam Stern, was speaking to RFK Racing late last year, trying to put together a deal to enter the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, the article also mentioned something that I'd heard quite a bit, is that there was a brewing relationship with Tony Stewart and Stewart-Haas Racing. There was a potential there that Tony Stewart could join that brand. He obviously already joined them very strongly in NHRA. Now, the reason he's with them in NHRA, don't get me wrong, is because of his connections with his wife, Leah Pruitt, who, of course, drives the Dodge Power Brokers top fuel dragster there. And obviously, Tony kind of took over part of the Don Schumacher racing team and also expanded to a funny car program with Matt Hagan. So, you know, the Dodge Tony Stewart connection may only be in NHRA, and certainly now it's only going to be in NHRA for the current or for the foreseeable future. It seems like Tony Stewart's going to be kind of stuck with Ford in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, obviously, you guys know that I've kind of tried to be all over this thing since it kind of broke late last year when Steve Phelps went on Sirius XM and said, "Oh, hey, yeah, we're talking to another manufacturer, and it's Dodge." And everybody was like, whoa. If you're name dropping it, it would sound like it's pretty close. And I guess it did get pretty close, but at the end of the day, Dodge seems to have shifted their support of auto racing away from internal combustion engines. We know they're doing that in the production side of things, but they're also doing that in the racing side. I actually had a source in late July because, you know, the Dodge thing had gone quiet, and anytime something goes quiet in racing, you start scratching your head and you go, uh-oh, there's probably not good news. So I went to one of my sources about Dodge, and I said, is this even happening anymore? And at least the answer that I got in late July was, no, Dodge isn't happening. They had shifted their stuff to not only the electric cars, the electric production cars, but also something I found interesting was that the other part of the development crew that was looking at going to NASCAR was shifted to the Peugeot hypercar, which is also under the same parent company, Peugeot is, as Dodge. In fact, there's been some talk that the Peugeot Hypercar could come over here and race in IMSA with Dodge branding. Now, that car, of course, is a hybrid, and NASCAR at the moment does not have any hybridization, nor do they have an electric series, though we know there's an electric series in the works, or at least an exhibition that's planned at some point for the Clash at the LA Coliseum. So I wonder what that means for the electric NASCAR series too, because I kind of scratch my head and I say, if they were trying to kind of a last-ditch claw, trying to get Dodge back into the sport, kind of like what IndyCar did with Porsche, where they said, we're not doing hybrids. Then Porsche said, well, we can't do anything without a hybrid. Bye. Porsche left, and then IndyCar did a hybrid, but then Porsche didn't come back. I wonder if this is kind of similar, is that Dodge went to NASCAR and said, this is our corporate policy. We need you to do this. And NASCAR said, we're not doing that. And Dodge said, okay. And then they left. And then NASCAR was like, ooh, we need to do electric. We need to do hybrid, something, electrification. That's kind of my thought process. I mean, it would make sense given what I have heard about racing series and how they operate in the last couple of years. Now, like I said, this is not the only problem that NASCAR is facing right now. Big overarching problems. I mean, there's lots of small things. I'm sure you've heard many other YouTubers talk about yesterday, and don't worry, I will talk about yesterday. But there's a very pressing issue that's going to come down for NASCAR very soon, and it's beginning to sound a lot like the late 90s in American open wheel racing between CART and the Indy Racing League. Again, we go back to Adam Stern and his Twitter. And these are a couple of things that were said a couple of days ago just before the Charlotte Roval race. And it is that Jeff Gordon and a couple of high representatives from the team owners went to NASCAR and tried to have a discussion about the financial split of the sport's next media rights deal. And the Race Team Alliance, which is essentially NASCAR's version of CART, said that the proposal that was sent to NASCAR months ago never received an answer. And they finally got an answer, and it was not to their liking. Now, something that I thought was an absolute red flag is that NASCAR teams' calculations show that 93% of the sport's total value is represented by the league and the tracks, while 7% is represented by the team's combined value. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that, think about this, because we got a William Byron car here on the desk, and this is a great example of the value of NASCAR. Now, the car design itself is proprietary to NASCAR-ish. I mean, obviously, Chevrolet has a lot of say in that. But the reason you buy a William Byron diecast is because this is Hendrick Motorsports and it's William Byron. Those are the teams and the drivers. Do you necessarily buy something because did I buy this because it's NASCAR? No, I bought it because it's a good-looking car. And that's what a lot of people do. And the team owners look at all the merchandising in NASCAR. They look at the media rights. They look at all these things. What draws people to NASCAR? Is it the organization NASCAR? Is it the product that NASCAR puts out there? And what is the product? Is the product the teams and the drivers? If the teams and the drivers are the product, and if 93% of the revenue, the value of NASCAR, is not going to the teams and the drivers, then there's a bit of a problem, because the teams and the drivers feel slighted. And when the teams and the drivers feel slighted, you end up with splits. And I'm just going to say it. I'm smelling that, and it's not a good smell, because I've smelled it before. Case in point, IndyCar 1988, great series. It was on the rise, and by the time the mid-90s came around, it was a booming series. Huge manufacturer influence, huge sponsorships, team owners seemingly happy, manufacturers seemingly happy, tracks seemingly happy, and it all fell apart in a couple of years, and IndyCar racing has never truly recovered from it. NASCAR, on the other hand, it's been a slow burn. It's not happened all at once, and that perhaps is why it should scare you a little bit more. Because when everything was hunky-dory, everybody was a big happy family. But as things are beginning to shrink, and it looks like this TV deal is going to be one of the last big money things left in NASCAR, and NASCAR is beginning to take a lot of the money that they were giving to the tracks and bringing it back into the organization. Now, what will the team owners do? Because I think the team owners do have some leverage here. If the team owners felt that they are not getting their fair share, or whatever cut of this restructured TV deal is going to be, isn't sufficient for them, because remember, corporate sponsors in NASCAR are getting very small as well. If there's less money coming in from TV and teams can't sell sponsors, because another thing that Adam Stern said today is that a portion of the TV money may end up being sent to a streaming service. So there could be races locked away totally on streaming services. Well, that's less exciting to advertisers, because you're going from 1 million viewers to maybe 50,000 if you're lucky. Harder to sell sponsorships, less money from the TV deal, less money in general in the sport, less interest because some of it's going to be locked behind a paywall. Are the team owners going to put up with that? I would say probably not. If the team owners decide that they want to sit out, what happens? And I think some people have mentioned that the charter system is a way that NASCAR can kind of hold a lot of leverage over the team's heads. But as far as I can tell, the charter value is only so valuable as long as people are willing to pay the fees. And let's say all the teams sit out, and suddenly NASCAR has 36 charters that they can sell to other people. Are there people willing to buy the charters? And that makes me go back to the team owners have the leverage. And if the team owners have the leverage, generally speaking, at least on the IndyCar side of things, you get a split. We'll see. I also just briefly want to talk about the Roval race yesterday, because I said this on Twitter. The NASCAR playoffs feel like a mid-2000s reality show. I think a lot of people liked mid-2000s reality shows, and I liked them for a little while too. But then I began to see through it. And once I began to see through it, I couldn't unsee the fakeness of it. And that's how I'm now feeling with the NASCAR playoffs. I've totally checked out. I watch a race because I want to watch a race. I don't watch it because there's some championship on the line, because it all feels just pointless. Because they can take points away in a penalty for somebody intentionally wrecking somebody, give the points back, and then because they gave the points back, the defending champion gets knocked out of the playoffs and can't race for the championship. And then the teammate blocks for the other teammate when he didn't even need to block anyway, but then NASCAR is going to investigate that, but then they're not going to do anything. They're not going to penalize the guy who benefited, even though they've done that before with Martin Truex Jr., kicking a driver out who may or may not have benefited from team tactics. All this stuff, just absolutely ridiculous. And so I'm just over it. I'm just over the playoff format. They need to get rid of it, but they never will, because they're convinced that no one will care about NASCAR racing during football season. But it's the law of diminishing returns. It's football is what football is right now. Like, playoffs, no playoffs. This, in my opinion, the same amount of people will watch a NASCAR race on the Charlotte Roval, whether it's a playoff race or whether it's not, in football season. I don't think you'll change anything. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. Do what you want with it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Much more content coming throughout the week, and you need to subscribe if you want to see it all. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.